Welcome everybody to the EMS committee. I've got the roster up here. I'll take a roll as we go throughout the meeting. I think we're all here today, and I'm gonna take a little chair discretion. We're gonna do a little jumping around on the agenda because we've got some items I think will elicit some good public comment, and I want to make sure we have time for that. So I want to we have time for the things at the bottom of our agenda, and I think all those will go pretty quick. So I want to knock those out just as quick as we can. So we're going to actually skip down to item number 4 and go into the EMS for Children update. I think Sam Vance is here. There he is. And as he comes on up, I just want to remind everybody as we go through the meeting, we are being broadcast live over the internet. So even if you're just going to holler something out, try to come to the mic because I do believe we're going to have a large number of people watching on the internet today. And we want to make sure they can participate and hear what's going on here in the meeting. So, Sam, I'll turn it over to you.
All righty. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Sam Vance, and I'm the EMS for Children Program Manager. The EMS for Children program is a national program that its goal is to reduce morbidity and mortality in children. And we try and do that by making sure that all the ambulances, fire departments, and first responder organizations have the right equipment to take care of kids online and offline medical control. And back in 2010, they did a survey of all those services across the country to see if they carried those items or had online and offline medical control. Some of you may have participated in that survey back in 2010. This year, they're doing a reassessment to determine if we're doing any better, any worse, or staying the same. The first cohort already started back in June. Ours here in Texas starts up in October. Since we do have so many departments in the state, they allow us to do a sample survey. Our sampling includes 480 departments. They're pretty evenly representative of all the different regions. And those, how they come about getting those names is all the departments are submitted to the National EMSC Data Center up in Salt Lake City, Utah. They put them in the computer, and the computer picks them out by region, by percentage. So, as I stated, ours starts in October. They will not necessarily be the same departments that participated back in 2010. There may be some of them that did, but a good majority of them are new. I will be sending out letters and emails to those departments about the middle of September to let them know that they are going to be chosen to participate in the survey. Then at the end of September, I'll be sending out letters and emails to those departments to let them know here's the survey. The survey is going to be done online, so they will go online and do the survey. If they do not have computer or internet access, we do have the ability to send them a paper copy so they can fill out a paper copy. In addition to that, we will be having a booth at the Texas EMS conference in November. We'll have a computer or two set up there so folks can stop by and fill out the survey there. And I will keep it at that to keep it short for you all so you can get to the other things, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Sam? All right.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next on our agenda, next item I'm going to move to is item number, item number 5 I was going to do, but I think we'll just wait till we get to the item number 1 on 15711 and let Jane and Joe give us an update on the status of all of 157. But so let's move to item number 6, report from the work group examining language in 15711 and 15713 regarding patient care issues when EMS ground and air providers are present. Mr. Boyd.
It's my understanding, Jane, that Jane was going to have there were some questions that was submitted by Ms. Corbell from that group, and she has answers or a response or.
Jane has the answers.
I always have the answers. Yes, I got them. Excuse me. I got them last week.
You got the questions last week?
I got the questions last week. So do I have the answers for you? No.
Okay. I didn't. I mean, that's what Bert told us, that she had gotten you the questions and that.
Yes, I did. I received them. I believe it was last week, and we've kind of talked about them, but I don't have anything formally for you.
Okay. November.
Pardon?
November.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. That's all I got.
All right. This is moving right along. No, we're not going to beat the Education Committee, no. We are quickly approaching the Education Committee's time right now. Next on our agenda that I was going to go to was an update from the EMTF folks on the status of the MOAs for ground ambulances. As everybody should be aware, the MOAs we had signed with DSHS became null and void at the end of 2012, and everybody should have re-signed with the RACs and the EMTFs, the lead RACs in each EMTF, to be able to deploy should we have a storm or any other large need for ambulances. And I was just getting a text message a while ago while Jane was delivering her report there, and Eric's going to come over, but it's going to be closer to 10. He's tied up in another meeting right now, but he's going to be here a little bit closer to 10, so we'll get him probably last in the meeting to give everybody an update. I know there's been a lot of folks who are curious about the number of MOAs that are signed and our preparedness levels and that kind of thing, and so Eric's going to be over here in probably about an hour. Update on issues on drug shortages and pharmaceutical compounding of drugs. That continues to be a thorn in our side as an industry. We talk about it every time to see if there's any updates. There was a recall out of a compounding pharmacy organization in North Texas for everything that had not expired that they had manufactured. And so hopefully everybody got that. And the compounding pharmacy in San Antonio that a lot of folks were using, especially for controlled meds, is no longer able to manufacture controlled meds. They can do the rest. And so as controlled meds come around and be scarce, that may become an issue for us. But was curious if anybody else had any other issues, any other things you needed to bring up. I know the medical directors are following this as well, and they'll probably be talking about it. But I always like to come here and see if anybody, is having issues that we can help get them assistance with, or if you've heard of things out there that we need to be aware of as an industry. Anybody? Committee? Audience? Anybody? Plenty of drugs available? It's odd that they're becoming more available, but the prices are going up significantly. What other industry can you get a letter from a vendor saying your prices are going up 1,000%? And we just go, okay, thank you. Can I have another? Yeah, exactly. Nothing from the audience on that? All right, I think there's a lot of communication that's going on inside of RACs and rack to rack and informal network association or informal industry associations out there and formal industry associations to help address this. But honestly, the more we can share and the better we are about sharing that information, the safer we're all going to be. So, and then Mr. Petrilla, Trauma Systems Committee Registry Work Group update.
Is Tammy here? Or Jane, can you speak to the...
Oh, not Tammy sitting next to you, but Tammy Sajak.
Jane, we're meeting this afternoon, or we're meeting this morning at 11:30. I don't know if there's anything you want to update on that. I know I'm impressed that it's moving along, and we're starting to see some... Probably the biggest naysayer of the group, so I'm starting to feel comfortable with a little bit. There's a lot of
Good. I guess the main thing, and y'all may have heard this in some of the other committees and at RAC chairs last night, we talked about the pilot project with RAC D that we're doing with the registry. That did get kicked off, and the registry staff and myself and Emily and Colin Crocker all traveled to RAC D to one of the general meetings, and we spent the afternoon talking with the providers there. There were about probably 50 people in the room. I don't know how many individual providers that represented, but it was both EMS and hospitals, and we the RAC had sent out a survey really trying to identify barriers that the providers were having to participating and submitting data to the registry. We reviewed those results, and then we got into a discussion with the individual providers about the challenges that they were facing in submitting data to the registry. It was a really good exchange. The registry staff is going to be doing some one-on-one provider education. It may be face-to-face. They actually have the ability to do it kind of as a webinar or online, so that individually with the individual provider, and walk them through using the registry. Because predominantly what we heard is that I think most of the providers there had not used it enough to be comfortable with it, and there were some shortcuts in the registry that they didn't seem to know about. As an example, one of the EMS providers said that it takes them like 30 minutes to input a record. So if you've got 100 records to input in a month, do the math. You know, it's prohibitive. So there's some cues in the registry that they could use that would decrease that time significantly. So it was a really good conversation and exchange back and forth. HT was here last night at RAC Chairs, and he said he thought it was a very good process. So we're not there yet. The pilot is working. Once it is completed, I think the plan is to bring back that survey that was done, let the RAC chairs see it, and probably do the survey with the rest of the RACs. The thought is that the solutions that we can put in place for RAC D can be exported into other RACs, and those solutions can work across the board. So that's kind of where we are. Now we're working on getting reports, trying to get some information from all the committees and from the RACs about what reports they'd like to see, and we're working on that piece currently, and that's one of the discussions that we're going to have at our work group meeting today. So, questions?
Are they planning a conference class on the registry at all?
A conference?
At our conference?
I'm
Might
not sure.
be a bad idea.
Not sure.
Just a thought.
Well, you know, we did that, I think last year. We had the vendor there to show the registry and to go through it. They were there for, I believe, 2 or 3 days, and they had no one come through. Yes. So it was not a good use of resources. So I'm not sure that they would want to repeat that. But we can, you know, if y'all think that would, if you think people will come, we'll do it.
You know, just listening to that though, but hearing about the success from RAC D that they reported last night is maybe some of the RAC D champions along with the trauma so if we get EMS people there along with the trauma registry people, or hospital people there along with the trauma registry, maybe they can reach out and grab people as they walk by or whatever. You know, I think it may give it a little more street cred than it with the, is like that word? It may give it a little bit more of that with the providers, if it's more than just the DSHS, the police there, you know what I mean?
I also think you're in a different position now than you were a year ago. You were still facing a pretty open rebellion against the system a year ago. I mean, frankly, yeah, it has. There's a lot less resistance. I think everybody has pretty much acquiesced. This is here to stay, and there's some pressure to get on board now, too. So you might see a little bit different of an approach from the EMS side, hopefully anyway.
Okay.
Almost. All righty. Anything else on the registry work group? Anything from the audience on that?
11:30 in the pop-off room if you want to come sit in and listen. Right? 11:30 pop-off room?
Correct.
Which is, which room? The one around the corner towards the restrooms?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
All righty. And, all righty, we're making great time. The big giant clock that sunburns our faces up here is saying that we have 75 minutes left, so we're doing good. We're going to move back up to the top of the agenda. One of the things I put a note down here on, and I certainly don't want to neglect to do, so I'm going to give him the time now, is I wanted to make sure, because some folks just come in for the EMS committee and then they go, is I wanted to make sure to welcome to Texas, our new state EMS director, Mr. Joe Schmieder, and give him a few chances to smack me around and to introduce himself to the rest of the group. So, Joe, welcome. And
Sir, I would never take a shot at you as the chair of such a distinguished group. Hey, good morning. It is my pleasure to be here. I guess I've been in Texas now since June 7th. I come to you from Pennsylvania. I was the state EMS director up there for about 9.5 years. Worked for the health department for 11 years. Before that, I was the regional director of EMS in the Bucks County region over on the eastern side of the state for 10 years. Before that, I was a chief of an ambulance service for 10 years. And as I said yesterday, it seems like I'm on a 10-year cycle, so I should be here about 10 years. And then hopefully I'll be retiring and wealthy and wise and all those kind of things. But, I started out in EMS back in '74 and as a volunteer, and I've been in it ever since. I actually started out on the fire side as a firefighter of my local volunteer fire company. And it was just something you did in our family, as I'm sure most of the people in the audience would appreciate, is that when we used to have family gatherings, you didn't talk about the Eagles or the Phillies. Well, no one talks about the Eagles, but you talked about who died, what burned down, who got shot, whatever the case may be. It was just the normal. And then HIPAA came along and took away all the fun. So it's been a neat and exciting career. Both of my children now live and work here in Austin. Hopefully my wife will be joining me soon. She's still up in Pennsylvania trying to sell the house. So if you know anybody looking to live in beautiful Bucks County, I know there's a house for sale. We'll make a deal. But it is my honor to be here and represent you. And as I said to many people, what's the difference between Pennsylvania and Texas, other than Texas is really big, really big. The numbers are a lot the same. There was 60,000 providers, EMS providers in Pennsylvania. There's 63,000 in Texas. There were 1,200 licensed EMS agencies in Pennsylvania. There's 1,300 in Texas. There's an EMS dispatch every 3.5 seconds in Pennsylvania, and we transported the population of Pennsylvania every 7.6 years. So the system is pretty similar, I would suspect, only because of the size. And your population in Texas is twice the population of Pennsylvania. Literally, it's 12.6, and we're around 26 million here. So it's twice the size. But the issues are all the same. It's recruitment, retention, recognition, and reimbursement. And I think probably the strongest one is recognition, and then comes reimbursement. But from the recognition standpoint, I think we need to work together to ensure that the community understands the value of EMS. And I cringe every time I hear someone refer to the ambulance drivers or that we're looped in with the fire department. Not that we're better than the fire or the police, but we are definitely equal to the fire and police, and we need to be recognized as that. So we need to work together to ensure that people recognize EMS as one of the essential services to all communities. And if there's any overall issue or goal that I would bring to Texas, is I just want every person to get the same care that I would want my family member to get. And I know that's what people say all the time, but I really do mean that. And I'm here to work with you, and it really is my honor to represent you. Thank you.
thank you, and welcome to Texas. Two things that I would like to mention. One is, I've heard you do your introduction 3 or 4 times now over the last couple of days, and I always learn a little bit more. But one of the things you have said every time that is heartwarming to me to hear from a state EMS director is that you feel one of the critical issues facing us is the last R that you've mentioned every time, which is reimbursement. Because our regulatory agency doesn't do a lot with reimbursement, we don't always hear that from our regulatory agency and the importance of that. And so it kind of warms my heart a little bit to hear that that is something that's on your radar, even though you may not have direct purview over it. You recognize that it's the importance of it to our industry and where we're going moving forward. And then the second thing I wanted to mention that you haven't brought up yesterday or today, but I understand you brought up at another GTAC committee meeting, is that there is the potential of some certain identifying marking that you may or may not have. that I think this committee probably needs to be aware of in case, you have an accident while you're traveling across this great state. We'll be able to identify you should you have some facial trauma. So, I don't know if you want to bring that up now or maybe something on the side. But
That's probably something better held outside of the meeting, especially
Okay.
since we're broadcasting naturally.
Well, okay.
But
There'll be plenty of people asking you about it in the hall now since I've let the cat out of the bag just a little bit.
Well, I'll give at least a hint that I've been to 38 Jimmy Buffett concerts in my life, so that may help you understand.
Why is Jane shaking her head? I don't understand.
She didn't know that before she.
I did not know this when I hired him, okay?
Exactly how do you want me to phrase that in the notes?
I'll take care of it when you send them to me. I'll edit that. All right, Joe. Welcome to Texas.
Thank you, sir.
And we do hope that you're here for a long term. It's been a pleasure getting to know you so far. So, all right. Well, let's jump in. Jane, I'm going to ask you to kind of give an introduction to agenda item number 1, reviewing proposed revisions to Chapter 15711 regarding the changes mandated by House Bill 3556 and Senate Bill 8. And while you're doing that, if you could give an update regarding 157 in general, maybe to start with, about where that's at, because we always ask you every time we get together, and then let's get into the purpose of what we're doing in 15711 today.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you the update on where we are in the general rule packet, and then I'm going to pass it off to Joe
Okay.
to talk about SB 8 and 3556. So the rule packet for the general rule revision thank you, has not gone anywhere. It's still in our shop. Between session and Maxie leaving and Joe coming on and now this, we haven't touched it and literally since February.
Okay.
So we will begin that process again. We still have all of the comments from the committees, the vetted comments that you guys submitted to us. So we have worked through a number of the sections, but we've not done the entire chapter. The plan is the same. Once we have a pretty good draft, then we'll sit down with the committee chairs individually and go through the rule. We can do it line by line, however the committee chair would like to do that, so that they're comfortable with it. Then we'll have a general, massive stakeholder meeting so that we can all come together and go through the rule line by line. I think it was either Dudley or someone suggested that we do EMS one day and trauma the next day. That's kind of to be determined. I anticipate it will take at least 2 days to go through the entire packet before it actually gets into what I call our pipeline, where it goes forward through the DSHS, HHSC process. So that's where we are. Questions about that in general? Nope. Okay. So for Senate Bill 8 and 5711, I'll turn you over to Joe.
So, Chair, let me just understand, what do you want to do here? I mean, I can talk about it or I can show it, whichever is easier for you.
I think what would be best is the way we usually have done this in the past, although it's been a while since we've reviewed a rule in a big meeting like this, but is if we go through and just kind of highlight all the changes and why and what the purpose is, because I know a lot of this, and I think a good introduction would be, how you came up with the changes, because I think it's basically law language.
Sure.
And then I think the committee's going to have some things, and when we get through all that, then we'll open it up to the floor, and then we'll probably jump around as people come up with different comments.
Sure. And okay. So for you and for the audience, the new rule is on our website as of yesterday, and understanding what we were trying to accomplish was, and I've read all the recommendations from the committee toward 15711 from the, I guess, years of work that you've put into it, and I will first say I probably agree with the majority of it. There are some questions, but I think it's setting us in the right direction. So we were going to try to incorporate that in there, but there was still enough stuff there that would have a lot of discussion that would slow down Senate Bill 8 and 3556, which we have to have done by September of next year. So then we stepped back and took the approach that the only thing that's in 5711 right now is the stuff that is directly affected by Senate Bill 83356. And we'll show you that we have a copy of the rules, a PowerPoint of it, that is highlighted, and anything in yellow is the language right out of the law itself, okay, where we took discretion where we had to, and I'll explain that. So as you know, the whole purpose of Senate Bill 8 and 3556 was to address some of the fraud issues that has been going on in Texas. And it's not unique to Texas. I had a lot of years of experience dealing with the same kind of issues in southeast Pennsylvania. Same scenarios. You know, a third of the ambulance services licensed in Pennsylvania were from southeast Pennsylvania, and I know a third of the ambulance services licensed in Texas or in that Houston area. So there's been a lot of attention brought to that, and Texas has done a lot of great work over the years with their federal partners to address this need. But this legislation, I think, is going to make it better, and I know that this committee and a lot of providers had a lot of input into what we're looking at today. And I will commend Texas for taking the steps that they've taken. I think we're probably the first in the nation to do such an overhaul that will really form the future of EMS, and I think you'll see a lot of other states mirroring what we're doing here in Texas. So some of the minor changes, you know, it's called an applicant when you apply for an ambulance application now. There's some of those kind of editorial things, but the big things that I think you're interested in, the audience is interested in, is in some of the more qualified things that have to happen. For example, you have to have a medical director. A component of the organization has to be employed. Now the question comes, what does that mean? Does that mean they have to be paid? And the answer is no. You just have to have that medical oversight. And I think anyone who's been in EMS any periods of times understands in the 70s and the 80s when EMS got started, the doctors and the nurses were heavily involved in EMS. Then we went through the 80s, the later 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, and we said to the health community, we don't need you doctors, we can do this without you. And then we realized that, you know what, if we're going to be a real part of the medical system, we need to link ourselves with the doctors and the nurses and the hospitals and the systems. And I think that puts us back in there. It puts us back into the community in the medical side of the ship.
So the interpretation on the employed of a medical director means that you just have to have one, you have to have an agreement with one. It's not necessarily they have to be compensated or anything else, but there has to be a relationship between the medical director, and it's for all provider types now.
Yes.
Not just ALS.
Correct.
Okay.
And it just makes great sense. It really does. The other changes to it, as we talk about oh, thank you. On the applicant itself, if you would go down, you know what? I'll get there. This will probably make more sense. So each organization, let me see if I can do this without messing everything up. Nope. Okay. Can you fix that for me? Yeah. So we're gonna go to down, I believe, to the AOR. There we go. So the administrative director, and we refer to it as the AOR now, has to be declared by the organization. We got to know who that person is. And if you look on the board here, that's the language. When it's underlined, that's the new language that we're putting into the rule itself. The yellow is language that came right from the legislation. The white is what we put into it, okay? Where it says the administrative director cannot be employed by or compensated by another private for-profit emergency medical services. So they can only be associated with one. They must be qualified to be that AOR, that administrator of record. They have to be at least an EMT or certified in Texas related to some kind of emergency services. And in that case, I would say that, you know, a nurse, a doctor, or some kind of relationship in Texas, and be certified. They have to go through a background check to make sure that they do the same background check that we all do when we get certified. And the applicant must be do an 8-hour course that we'll come up with on the EMS laws here in Texas, and we added in the federal laws too. They cannot be exempt from Medicare programs, you know, those federal programs, or Medicaid here in Texas.
Real quick on that, Joe. I think the 8 hours the 8 hours is for the CE, correct? Right now,
That's for the continuing education, yes.
okay. So
Annually.
y'all went ahead and put in here that the administrator of record has completed an initial education course approved by the Department on state and federal laws, which I think is huge because I think it only said state laws in the statute. And so that's something you decided to go ahead and put into rule, even though that was I don't want to say it was an option, it just said the commissioner may require.
You are correct, sir.
Okay, good.
So we'll come up with a program, and there are some national programs already out there that kind of talk about those kind of things. So we'll come up with that base program, and it won't be that hard that you won't be able to meet it, that's for sure.
Yeah, and this committee has done a lot of stakeholder work around the state. A lot of the things that this was built off of were brought to DSHS a couple of years ago, and this committee spent a lot of time taking stakeholder input